If you've ever watched a horror movie and felt something heavier than fear, something older, denser, like the film was pressing on a nerve that existed long before cinema, then you already know what this video is about. Because some horror doesn't just scare you, some horror remembers you. It feels ancient, pre-human, as if the movie didn't invent the terror, but merely uncovered it. And here's the uncomfortable truth most horror channels never talk about. Those films aren't always about demons, ghosts, or monsters. Sometimes they're about gods. Not metaphorical gods, not symbolic gods, actual deities, ancient entities that humanity once feared, worshipped, sacrificed to, and then buried beneath newer belief systems. Today, we're stepping into forbidden territory. The gods horror cinema wasn't supposed to remember. The ones that don't fit neatly into Christianity, atheism, or modern skepticism. The ones that don't tempt you, they outlast you. And once you notice them, you can't unsee them. So here's my question to you. Which is scarier, a demon you can fight, or a god that doesn't even notice your prayers? Drop your thoughts in the comments as we go, because I promise this video is going to challenge how you see some films you thought you understood. We're not here to mock religion. We're not here to dismiss belief. We're doing something far more dangerous. We're analyzing horror cinema as theology, as cultural memory, as humanity accidentally telling the truth about the divine when it thought it was just telling scary stories. And we have to start with the film that cracked the door open for all of this. The movie that didn't just terrify audiences, it wounded them. The Exorcist. When it released, people fainted in theaters, vomited, reportedly miscarried. Churches saw spikes in exorcism requests overnight. This wasn't normal fear. This was collective trauma. And most people think they know why. Possession, blasphemy, religious horror. But that's not what truly broke people. The real horror was older. Pazuzu, often dismissed as just a demon, was not invented for the film. He was a Mesopotamian god, a documented deity for the Syria and Babylon, archaeologically verified, statues, amulets, inscriptions. Thousands of years before Christianity existed, people feared Pazuzu as the king of the wind spirits, son of the god Hanbi, bringer of famine, drought, and plague winds. And yet, here's the part most people don't know. He was also worn as protection. Mothers hung his image over cradles. People carried his likeness to ward off worse evils. He was terrifying enough to scare other horrors away, a god used against gods. The Exorcist reframes him as a demon because it has to. The Christian framework has no category for pagan gods except demonic. But watch the opening again. Father Merrin doesn't react like a man encountering a devil. He reacts like someone seeing an old enemy he hoped was gone forever. That dig site in Iraq? Ancient Assyria, Pazuzu's homeland. Merrin doesn't look shocked. He looks resigned. As if he knows this thing isn't supposed to be gone, only dormant. And when the exorcism happens, notice how different it feels from every possession movie that followed. The ritual barely works. One priest dies of a heart attack, another sacrifices himself. And the entity? It isn't banished in triumph, it's displaced. Ask yourself in the comments, do you think Pazuzu was defeated or merely bored? Because gods don't die when belief systems change, they wait. And horror cinema, intentionally or not, keeps digging them back up. Now, let's talk about Sinister, a film that slipped past a lot of people while quietly delivering one of the most terrifying god concepts ever put on screen, Bughuul, Mr. Boogie, a pagan entity worshipped in ancient Babylon, described as a devourer of children who lived inside images. Sit with that for a moment. A god that exists within images, a deity whose power grows through being watched. That should unsettle every person watching this video right now. According to the film's internal mythology, Bughuul spreads through visual representation. Ancient paintings once served as gateways. look too long, and a connection forms. Over time, that connection deepens, and eventually, he reaches through. The brilliance of Sinister is how it updates this mythology without changing its core. The paintings become Super 8 films, home movies, artifacts of domestic life. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Watching is worship. The children don't just kill their families, they create something for Bugul. Each massacre is staged, filmed, preserved. The art is the offering. Ask yourself this in the comments: if viewership is worship, what does that make us? Because Sinister implicates the audience. You watched the lawnmower scene, the pool scene, the burning car. By the film's logic, you've already engaged with Bugul. You've participated. The screen becomes an altar. And here's the truly horrifying implication the movie never states outright. What happens when that god adapts to the internet? No geography, no scarcity, infinite replication. If Bugul existed today, he wouldn't need cults, he'd need algorithms. Every viral video would strengthen him, every shared clip would widen the doorway. Drop a comment. Does Sinister feel more disturbing now than it did when you first saw it? Because this is horror that ages worse, not better. And that brings us to a god with no name. It follows. At first glance, it looks like a curse, a monster, a metaphor for disease. But look closer. The entity follows rules that never break. It never runs, never stops, never negotiates. That's not a monster, that's law. Divine law. It spreads through ritualized intimacy. Consent is required. Transmission happens through sex, echoing ancient fertility rites and sacred unions. And once you're part of the chain, you're never truly free. You become part of a lineage stretching backward into unknowable history. That's a congregation. That's theology. This entity doesn't hate you. It doesn't enjoy killing. It simply is, like gravity, like time, like death. Which raises the question, is this a god of punishment or a god of consequence? One that enforces rules without malice or mercy. And that's why it's terrifying. You can't appeal to it. You can only obey or die. Comment below, do you think It Follows is about sex or about mortality itself? Because once you see it as the latter, the film becomes unbearable. You can run, you can delay, but you can never stop. And the moment you rest, it gains ground. That's not horror. That's existential theology. Robert Eggers' The Witch is often described as a satanic horror film, but that reading is too simple. Black Phillip isn't behaving like the Christian devil. He doesn't tempt aggressively. He doesn't lie. He waits. He observes. He offers exactly what's asked for and then delivers. That's not satanic. That's pagan. The horned god, Pan, Cernunnos, the forest deity demonized by Christianity when older religions had to be erased. Butter, pretty dresses, living deliciously. These are not metaphysical promises. They're earthly, sensual, immediate. And notice, Black Phillip only speaks after Christianity has already failed Thomasin completely. Her family destroys itself through paranoia, guilt, and impossible religious standards. The goat simply remains. When Thomasin chooses him, is she damned or liberated? Drop your answer below, because the film refuses to decide for you. And then there's Mother, a film that asks a devastating question. What if the god you worship doesn't care about you, and the goddess who sustains you is being murdered for his glory? Jennifer Lawrence's character is not human. She's Earth, a goddess of home, growth, and creation. The house is her body. Every scratch hurts. Every violation wounds her. And humanity floods in, worshiping the male creator while ignoring her suffering. This is mythic. This is ancient. The feminine divine exploited until collapse, reborn only to be destroyed again. When the child is taken and consumed, it's not subtle. Eucharist, sacrifice, apocalypse, and the cycle restarts. Ask yourself, is this blasphemy or prophecy? Comment below, because Mother isn't horror about destruction, it's horror about being essential and still ignored, about being divine and still powerless. That's cosmic horror no Lovecraft monster ever touched. Ari Aster did something radical with Midsommar. He removed the dark. No shadows, no night, because the god being worshipped doesn't hide. The sun god watches everything. The Horror cult doesn't lie. They explain themselves. Their rituals are public, communal, beautiful, and that's what makes it unbearable. The sacrifices make sense within the theology: cycles, renewal, purpose, belonging. Compare that to modern death, sterile, isolated, hidden. Which is more horrifying, the cult or us? Dani's arc is a conversion story. She arrives broken, alone. The Horga give her grief, structure, empathy, community. They cry with her, feel her pain. And when she chooses the final sacrifice, she's not coerced, she's initiated. The smile at the end, is it madness or peace? Drop your interpretation below, because Midsommar dares to suggest something terrifying, that a functioning belief system might be worth the price it demands. A Dark Song may be the most theologically accurate horror film ever made. The Abramelin ritual is real, painstaking, dangerous, and the film respects that. When the angel appears, it's not comforting, it's overwhelming, terrible, and it offers a choice: vengeance or forgiveness. Sophia chooses mercy, and that's the true horror, facing divine love without armor. Because being forgiven means letting go of who you were. That's death of another kind. So what ties all these films together? Gods don't negotiate. Demons answer to higher powers. Gods are the power. Horror is terrifying when it remembers that. So tell me, if gods are real, which ones are watching us now? Comment, like, subscribe. This is The Great Abyss, and remember, may the gods you worship be kind ones, and may you never meet the others. Now here's where everything we've discussed starts to lock together into something genuinely unsettling, so stay with me. What if these films aren't inventing gods at all? What if they're remembering them? Because across cultures, across centuries, across belief systems that never touched each other, the same patterns keep resurfacing. Gods of inevitability, gods of fertility and sacrifice, gods of images, gods of consequence, gods that demand attention rather than belief. Horror cinema, intentionally or not, has become one of the last places where these figures are allowed to exist without being sanitized. Modern religion doesn't like them. Modern atheism doesn't know what to do with them. Academia files them away as myths, but horror lets them breathe. Horror lets gods behave like gods again. Think about how often these entities don't care if they're worshipped. Pazuzu doesn't beg for followers. Bagul doesn't need temples. The entity in It Follows doesn't want belief, only compliance. The sun god in Midsommar doesn't convert outsiders through argument, only through participation. These are not evangelical gods. They don't need you to agree with them. They operate whether you acknowledge them or not. That's the kind of divinity modern culture finds unbearable. We like gods who need us, gods who care what we think, gods who explain themselves. But older religions didn't work that way. Older gods weren't moral teachers. They were forces: weather, seasons, birth, death, memory, hunger, sexuality, decay. And when those gods were replaced, they didn't vanish. They were reframed, demonized, reduced, or worse, ignored. Horror films dig them back up because horror is the genre least invested in comfort. Ask yourself this, and answer honestly in the comments. Why do these movies feel heavier than normal horror? Why do they linger? Why do you think about them days later? It's because something in you recognizes them. Cultural memory isn't just books and ruins, it's nervous systems, it's instinct. When The Witch shows us Black Phillip, some part of the audience doesn't see Satan, it sees freedom. When Midsommar shows ritual suicide under the sun, part of us recoils, but another part understands the logic. That doesn't make us evil, it makes us human. These films aren't saying this is right, they're saying this is older than right and wrong. And that's dangerous. Because if horror cinema is accidentally preserving theology, then every time we watch these films, we're participating in something closer to ritual than entertainment. Sitting in a dark room, eyes fixed on moving images, allowing ancient patterns to unfold. Sound familiar? It should. Leave a comment. Do you think horror is closer to religion than we admit? Because once you see it that way, the genre becomes a lot harder to dismiss as just movies. Here's the distinction everything hinges on, and once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Demons are terrifying, but gods are worse. Demons exist within a system. They rebel, they fall, they serve something greater even if unwillingly. That means they can be fought, banished, outwitted. There are rules, hierarchies, loopholes. A demon can be overpowered by stronger faith, better ritual, holier authority. That's comforting. Gods don't offer that comfort. Gods are the system. There is no higher authority to appeal to, no escalation, no cosmic customer service department. If a god decides something, that's the end of the discussion. And horror cinema understands this instinctively. Notice how often victory in these films is incomplete. Pazuzu isn't destroyed. Bughuul isn't stopped. He just moves on. The entity in It Follows can be delayed but never ended. The sun god in Midsommar doesn't even acknowledge resistance. The goddess in Mother burns and is reborn endlessly. These aren't defeats, they're continuations. Gods don't lose. At best, they outlast. And that terrifies us because it strips away agency. Modern storytelling loves empowerment arcs. Horror about demons still lets us believe that knowledge, faith, or strength might save us. Horror about gods says something colder. Your survival might be irrelevant. Whether you live or die could simply be a byproduct of something larger unfolding. That's why these films feel oppressive, heavy, why they leave people unsettled instead of exhilarated. They don't restore order, they reveal it. Ask yourself, and I really want you to answer this in the comments, would you rather face something evil or something indifferent? Because indifference means you don't matter enough to be hated, and that's the divine horror at the center of these stories. The gods aren't cruel for cruelty's sake, they're enforcing cycles, rules, balance, memory, and humans are inputs, variables, sacrifices, witnesses, worshippers, sometimes unwilling. This is why horror that touches theology hits deeper than gore or jump scares ever could. It confronts us with the possibility that meaning doesn't revolve around us, that the universe might be structured, purposeful, and utterly uninterested in our comfort. That's not nihilism. That's ancient religion resurfacing in cinematic form. And horror is the only genre brave enough to let it speak. Now here's the part where things get uncomfortably close to home. So don't tune out. Because if gods exist in horror cinema, then the audience isn't just observing them, we're engaging with them. Think about how many of these entities operate through attention, through watching, through acknowledgement. Bughuul grows stronger the more his images are viewed. The sun god's power in Midsommar is inseparable from communal participation. Even the witch requires Thomasin's consent, her spoken choice to activate Black Phillip's true form. These gods don't force belief, they wait for recognition. And what is watching a film if not recognition? You give them time, focus, emotional energy. You sit still and let them unfold. That's ritual behavior. That's worship adjacent, whether we like it or not. This doesn't mean horror movies are summoning demons. Relax. But it does mean they're engaging with the same psychological and cultural mechanisms religion always has. Shared stories, sacred narratives, archetypes that bypass logic and hit instinct. When people say, "This movie stuck with me," that's not metaphorical. It lodged somewhere deep. And ancient religions understood that images had power, that representation mattered, that depiction could invite presence. Modern secular culture laughs at that idea, right up until a horror film makes us feel watched, or followed, or judged, or claimed. Comment below, have you ever finished a horror film and felt like something stayed with you? Not fear, presence. Because that reaction is exactly what these myths were designed to produce. Horror cinema doesn't create belief, it reactivates dormant structures. It reminds us how humans have always related to the unknown. And in a world where traditional religion is declining, but existential dread is rising, horror quietly fills the gap. It gives us gods we don't have to kneel to, but also can't escape. And maybe that's why we keep coming back. Modern culture is deeply uncomfortable with forbidden gods, and for good reason. They contradict everything we've been taught to believe about progress, control, and human centrality. These gods don't care about personal fulfillment. They don't reward belief with happiness. They don't promise justice. They promise continuation, cycles, balance, consumption, renewal through destruction. That's why mainstream storytelling avoids them or turns them into villains. We prefer neat moral frameworks, clear heroes, clear evils, clear endings. Forbidden gods erase clarity. They exist beyond morality. And that's terrifying because it suggests the universe might not be structured around fairness. Horror cinema is one of the last places willing to explore that, honestly. Not to celebrate it, but to confront it. That's why these films are divisive. People don't just dislike them, they reject them. They call them pretentious, miserable, meaningless, because engaging with them requires surrendering comforting assumptions. It requires admitting that belief systems are historical accidents layered over much older ways of understanding reality. And nobody likes being reminded that their worldview is temporary. Drop a comment. Do you think these films are misunderstood on purpose? Because dismissal is easier than confrontation. Calling something just shock value is a way of not dealing with what it's actually saying. Horror that touches theology isn't asking to be liked, it's asking to be endured, and that's why it matters. So where does that leave us? With a simple but unsettling realization. Horror cinema doesn't just scare us, it preserves forbidden knowledge. It remembers gods we tried to forget. Pazuzu reminds us that deities don't disappear when belief systems change. Bugul warns that images have always been dangerous. It Follows exposes consequence as divine law. Black Phillip resurrects the wild god buried under morality. Mother shows us the goddess screaming while no one listens. Midsommar dares to imagine a god that actually fulfills human needs at an unbearable cost. A dark song confronts us with the possibility that the divine isn't evil or benevolent, but transformative beyond recognition. These films aren't telling us what to believe, they're asking whether belief ever really left. Maybe gods don't need temples anymore. Maybe they live in stories, in images, in rituals we pretend are entertainment. And maybe the reason these movies haunt us is because some part of us recognizes the patterns. The old gods never asked to be worshipped forever, only to be remembered. So before you go, answer this in the comments. If gods still exist, which ones do you think are watching us now? Like the video if this made you think. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into theology, myth, and horror. This has been The Great Abyss. Stay curious, and remember, demons can be fought, gods must be endured.